Hey guys, welcome back. It's the Dr. Cloud Show. We're starting a very new week. It is a very new week. It starts with a Monday. And that means, you know what? There's nothing special about any particular day in and of itself, except you can declare them special. And so I declare this as a special new beginning for you wherever you are. We can symbolically say, you know what? I don't know what's happened up until today, but I'm going to drive a stake in the ground and say, today's the day that I decided to change something or get better, or things are going so well today's the day I decided just kind of like let them go well for a while and enjoy it. But anyway, I just want you to have a good Monday. Basically, is what I'm doing. Just, that's all. So welcome back. Let me give you the number out real quickly. It's 844-940-2774 is the number to get on the program. This is a show where I talk to you and you talk to me and everybody learns from us talking about stuff, whatever's going on in your life, your relationships or your clinical issues or dreams, goals, and all of that. And then we unpack it and we look at it and learn. That's where we learn, from talking to each other and telling each other our stories. A lot out there written on story nowadays, even, emerging like these models of therapy, like narrative therapy and all of that kind of stuff. There's a lot. There really is a lot to the value of story. One of the most important things about anybody's story, I think, is that you place today, what's going on today, in a larger narrative of the story of your life, because that keeps you from getting submerged in any moment as if this is our whole life. Like, the pandemic is like that. If we don't realize that our lives and, civilization, everything's got a long narrative to it. And this is just one scene in a larger movie. We don't realize that, scenes have beginnings and middles and endings. And we start to think, gosh, this is the way it's going to be forever. People start to adopt new phrases like new normal and all that kind of stuff. We can get stuck and subjective in the moment and get lost. And we all need a narrative of our life. You're going through a breakup. This is one scene in a long movie. If you're going through a loss, it's one scene in a long movie. And we have to move through these scenes well, but life is going to continue. And we get to be a co-author in that life and in that script. And so that's one of the powerful things about the story of your life. You know what? We'll do a opening segment on that one day. That's not our topic for today. But before we get into our topic for today, let me give you a couple of announcements. We have an event coming up in February. Actually, February the something or other, 21st, live 2-hour webinar right here, you and me right here for 2 hours on February 21st, 5:00 Pacific time. Now, if you can't make it for that exact time, you can, if you sign up, you can come at 5:01, or you can come at midnight, or you can come the next day or a week later or whatever, because we will post it there for you to stream whenever you watch it. Sort of like the national championship game. I can't be there right when it starts tonight, but I got to watch it. So I'm going to stream it later, like it started at that moment when it really didn't. Well, you can do that with this event. Starts at 5 p.m. February 21st, live, you and me. And the event is on trust. Sort of like all things that go into trust. For, a long time ago, I started doing a pretty deep dive in studying trust, because trust really fuels investment in a relationship. It fuels investment into a business. It fuels customers' investment into your business. It fuels your kids' investment into you as parents. It fuels everything. How much we trust someone fuels how invested we are. And when I started working on this many, many years ago, I used to use the term the anatomy of trust, because I think of it that way, that it has, anatomy is how something's constructed, and there's parts to it. And there are elements that trust comes from. And that's what we're going to be looking at. So what questions will this event answer for you? Well, What is trust? We use the word a lot. What do we actually mean by it? What does it do for us? How is it built? Are there things that we can do that we think build trust but actually don't? It's working against us? And are there things we're unconsciously ignoring that would build more trust if we knew how to do them, if we need somebody to trust us? How is it broken? What is it that tears it down? Is it always betrayal, or is it more? Is there somebody that would never betray you, for example, never lie, cheat, or steal, but you still should not trust them? There's a good question. After it's broken, can you repair it? And who should you repair it with? And who should you think about never repairing it with? Who should you think about never trusting, at least as they exist on the planet today, to begin with? Are there signs to let us know this person's not trustworthy, no matter how charming and wonderful they may seem, or talented or gifted or brilliant? Being able to diagnose the pieces that go into trust and what you can trust, and then after it is broken, how do you rebuild it? Is that possible? All of that we're going to be going into. If you've found yourself on the planet not knowing who to trust, or you've been betrayed, or you want to rebuild a relationship, or you have been hurt by somebody's betrayal, how do we overcome it? We're going to be looking at all of that. 2-hour live webinar, learning how to trust, learning how to be trustworthy, learning who not to trust, learning how to rebuild trust, learning how to make it never go away, all those things by signing up. Here's how you do it. Go to boundaries.me/trust. Boundaries.me/trust to get signed up. And when you're there, take a moment, check out the whole boundaries.me platform. Become a subscriber. Become a boundaries.me plus subscriber. You get the trust webinar as well as all of the webinars we have included in your membership. So go check it out. Boundaries.me/trust. All righty. So we are going to go into our thought for the day. You know, every program I begin with a thought for the day, which is kind of something for us to think about and examine in our lives. And it usually interfaces with where science and the Bible come together, which is kind of like anything in real life. I have found that good science always pretty much, let me turn the heater down there. Good science always pretty much, it kind of validates what God has said about the way the universe works. And this is one of them for certain. And that is the idea of intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. Well, what is that? Well, in and X means exit. You go out of, you leave a building and go to the outside, right? Internal is inside. So when we're talking about motivation, and which is really gets at the, why am I doing something? Why do I want to lose 20 pounds? Why do I want to get a degree? Why do I want to go to that party? Why do I want to attend that church? Why do I want to? And basically, where is the motivation for that coming from? Is it coming from inside of me, or is it coming from outside? Now, the answer to that question is going to have a heck of a lot to do with how fulfilled you are in the doing of it, what lasting value, whatever it is you're doing, will have to you, how other people experience you and the doing of it, whether or not it will be sustainable, and whether or not it's really just a waste of time. It doesn't matter what we're talking about, because it could be true with the same thing for two different kinds of people. Now, one of the things we know about the science of this, I wrote a book called The Law of Happiness. The Law of Happiness was a book that that I wrote when a number of years ago. The president of the American Psychological Association, a guy named Martin Seligman out of Penn, he challenged the field to go research happiness and thriving. He said, look, guys, for 100 years, we've been studying what makes people miserable and how to get over it. Depression, anxiety, addictions, trauma. For over 100 years, the field is like well over 100 years. The field of psychology has been studying that. And he said, we've gotten really good at it. And that's true. And we know how to treat stuff, right? If you're depressed, we can help that. If you're anxious, we can help that. If you're addicted, we can help that. He said, but that's all the negative side of life. Why don't we go look at the positive side of life and find out people that are really thriving and they're happy? Why? What makes them that way? What do they do that's different than the unhappy people? Well, the field just responded like crazy. Gazillions, and I mean gazillions of research projects launched all around the world. And now, all these years later, this has been probably, I don't know. I'd have to go look it up. I'm going to guess maybe this is 15 plus years ago when he did this, maybe 20. Now there's graduate programs in what's called positive psychology, or psychology that studies the upside of life. Well, one of the things that they found that's one of the big factors of people who are happy and thriving, and I wrote about this in The Law of Happiness. That's the book. You can read about all this, or you can become a Boundaries.me subscriber. And we have a whole course on this, an entire course on happiness and all the different factors. Well, one of those factors that loads into this is they found that people that have goals are happier than people who don't. Imagine that. Really imagine that, because some people don't think about goals. Oh, that's for those driven type A's. I'm not into climbing the success ladder and all that. Well, it's really not about that. It's about knowing where you're going on purpose and defining how you know you're going to get there, or how you know you are there when you get there, and then figuring out some steps to get there. Well, that doesn't seem too weird. We ought to all be doing that. Like when I put my head on the pillow tonight, don't I want to put my head on the pillow and go, God, what a great day. What a great day. I accomplished this and that, and I had this experience and that experience, and love grew in this way or whatever. But if I don't have some sort of plan to get there, then good luck, right? So in this particular dynamic of finding happiness, it's about having a goal or goals in life, or goals for the day or the week or the month or the year. But here's the deal. Goals themselves are not enough and will not make you happy. How many times have we heard somebody say they worked their whole life to climb the ladder of success? They got to the top of the ladder, and then they found out the damn ladder's leaning up against the wrong building. They made it. They're successful. They got to the top. But what they invested themselves in didn't make them happy. That's the problem of intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation oftentimes. Okay, so what is intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation when it comes to these goals? Well, it comes to the question of, if you got a goal, why are you doing it? Is the motivation coming out from outside of yourself? Because mom and dad want you to go get that degree or be in that certain profession. Even if you're 45 years old, you're still listening to those voices. Or some friends, or the church, or the culture around you. That there's pressure to be this. And extrinsic motivation generally falls down into two categories. And that is, we're extrinsically, externally motivated. I'm going to do this to get a reward, an external reward like a paycheck, for example, or like somebody's approval, or somebody liked me, or this, that, and the other. That's external. Or I'm going to do it to avoid an external punishment. Like, if I don't do this, somebody's not going to like me. They're going to punish me by the silent treatment or rejection or anger. Or I'm not going to get the paycheck, or I'm not going to get the trophy, or I'm not going to get the recognition, or I'm not going to get whatever it is outside of myself. Well, is there anything wrong with a paycheck? No. It's fantastic. It drives us to work. If it's an internal motivation for a paycheck, right? Like, why do I want to go get the paycheck? Because I want to be able to buy stuff that fuels my soul. Right? I want to be able to put my kids through school. I want to be able to put a roof over our heads. I want to be able to, every now and then, like, go out to dinner, or go on a vacation, or invest in some gardening equipment. That's really funny for me. For me to say, I could barely get that out of now. Let me try again. Invest in a new set of golf clubs. Now that'll motivate me to go get the paycheck, not the gardening thing. But everybody's got their deal, right? But it matters to your soul. You know, Proverbs says that a desire accomplished is sweet to the soul. It becomes a tree of life, and it gives off fruit to us. Gives off fruit to us. I hadn't been able to play in a couple of years because of my surgeries, but when I started playing golf again, I bought a set of irons, and they're not the newest, fanciest, coolest ones out there, but oh my gosh, do I love those irons. I just love them. And I look at them, the optics and the way they set up, and I can see the target. It feels like when I was a kid and had those forged blades. And, you know, you have possessions like that your soul loves. All right, that's intrinsic. It feeds my soul. But what if I went out to the golf course and saw, well, all the cool players have this kind of golf club? Well, then I feel the pressure. I got to get that so I can be in the cool group. That's extrinsic, and it never will satisfy you. Whether it's parental approval, friends' approval, cultural approval, whatever that is, to do something for external reasons will leave you empty, is the best way to look at it. Do I want to lose weight so I can look cool? Or do I want to lose weight because I want to feel better? By the way, for those of you who are chronicling my path here, you know, I've been unable to walk for 2 years, and so very stagnant, and have a great weight gain plan that I can share with you. Just don't do anything for 2 years and keep eating, and you'll get like me. But now that I'm through my second surgery and I'm moving in today, I officially, I have lost 15 pounds. So thank you very much. Now, I don't think I'm extrinsically, I do want you to, you know, stroke me a little bit for this. But the reason I want to do it was I wanted to do it for me. But why are you doing it? Why are you doing some of the stuff you're doing? It's not going to fulfill you if you're doing it for the wrong reasons. You know, Jesus tells a story about giving and how giving is good for our soul. By the way, it's another one of the factors that comes up in the happy people. Happy people are givers. Some people didn't give for internal reasons because it fulfills them to give to good causes or other people, alleviate suffering in the world, or provide opportunity for people. Some people give it for the external recognition. You know what Jesus said about that? He said, when they give it and everybody gives them the external recognition and go, oh, we're going to put a plaque up in your name or whatever. He said, enjoy that plaque or enjoy that trophy or enjoy that applause because you have just received your reward in full. So, but the real intrinsic giver is somebody that gives because they're giving for real reasons, that it enhances your soul. And he said, don't even let your right hand know what your left hand is doing. That's how internal it is. So that even your external hands don't know that you're doing it. Isn't it cool when you get anonymous donors? You look at something, an anonymous donor. I do a lot of major donor events for a lot of really cool charities and speak at those, and they'll have all these people that are donating lots and lots of money to really, really good causes. And most of those events, you'll see them, the organizers step up and say, we have an anonymous donor who is given a gift of however much amount and will match anybody else that gives. And it motivates other people to give, but they don't even care about their name being associated with it. Intrinsic versus extrinsic. If you've ever known somebody that seeks people's approval all the time and wants to tell everybody, you see this in businesses sometimes. They always want to make sure everybody knows that was their idea or they get credit for it. And in all the leadership books will tell you in the great companies, nobody cares who gets the credit. We just want to win. But they just want the external, Have you ever noticed that after they get it, they really haven't changed any? Or after somebody makes a lot of money because they thought that would make them happy, that now they're just like the same jerk with a lot of money, or the same self-centered person and they have a lot of money, whatever it is. Anyway, intrinsic versus extrinsic. So here's the payoff. The payoff is if you find what you want internally that makes you happy and you pursue that, the promise of the scriptures and the findings of science are the same. Proverbs says that a real desire accomplished is sweet to the soul. It becomes a tree of life. And what does a tree of life do? A tree gives off fruit. So it lives in your soul forever to give off fruit. And I'll close with one quick story. It's a great example of this. I was speaking one night at a university, and afterwards, this guy walks up to me, a kid walks up to me, a student, and he says, oh, I really enjoyed your talk. And I said, great. Tell me why. And he said, well, I want to do what you do. And I said, oh, what is that? And he said, well, I'm actually pre-med. I want to become a psychiatrist. And I want to, I want to write books and do media and have a practice and all that kind of stuff. And I said, well, that's great. Tell me more about that. And he said, well, my grandfather was a well-known physician and he names the city. And then my father followed in his footsteps. And it's been a family tree, of respected physicians in our city. And he's talking about all this, and I kind of wanted to throw up, like about all this respect and status that he thought this profession was going to bring to him. And inside I'm thinking, well, if you do become a doctor, I hope nobody I care about goes to see you, because it just seems so all about him, and all about his pursuits and who he wanted to be and all of this. And anyway, so I ended the conversation and he moved on. And then about 10 minutes later, another kid walks up to me and says, oh, I really enjoyed that. And I said, well, tell me why. He said, well, I want to do what you do. I go, here we go again. I said, tell me what that, he said, he said psychiatrist too. He said, I'm pre-med and I want to become a psychiatrist. and have a ministry, working with people and helping them understand, the spiritual aspects of psychology and all of that. And I said, well, tell me how you decided to do that. And he said, well, it's really interesting. He said, I grew up in the church, and I always was volunteering, doing stuff. He said, but I really loved working with kids. I just loved, he said, I'd be a counselor at youth camps, and it's so much fun. You can see his eyes lighting up when he's talking about this. And I just loved it. And it brought me so much joy. And so I always thought, well, I'm going to go into the ministry so I can be a youth pastor. And then he said, I got it like the 10th grade. And he said, and I took biology, and I loved science. Like all I could do is like study biology, and I'd read books on it. I'd go to the lab. And then I was in this dilemma, like, well, I thought I wanted to be in the ministry, but then I loved science and pursuing scientific things. And then it hit me, well, I could become a doctor and I get to pursue my science, and I could also help people. But if I became a psychiatrist, then I could work more on the life issues with them, which is really ministry anyway. So to me, becoming a psychiatrist would be like everything I always wanted. And his eyes are like this big, and I'm like, I had tears streaming out. Oh, let me write you checks to send you to medical school. I'll pay for the whole thing. You're the real deal. And I wanted this kid to go soar. Same story, different motivations. Different motivations. One of them is external, one of them is internal. So just look at your life, look at your calendar. Why am I doing this? 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 Now, why am I doing this? Now, I want you to listen to those questions, because there's a lot of different meanings in those. Why am I doing this? Like, I didn't even like, I'm lost. Or, why am I doing this? Kind of curious, trying to find yourself. Or, why am I doing this? Meaning you already kind of know what matters to you, but this particular choice of this day or that week or that month, and getting all of those are important. Intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. Okay, so we are going to go to the phones, and we're going to take your questions as you post them. Let's start with one that's been posted from social. By the way, you can get the show on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, or listen to it as a podcast wherever your podcasts are sold, which is a joke because they're always free. So just download them wherever you get your podcasts. Go to the Dr. Cloud Show. Let me see. Jessica, have we got a social question that's burning?
We do. And I saw this one come through, and I thought, I really want to see what you have to say about this one.
Uh-oh.
She says, hi, Dr. Cloud. Should I knowingly date a person who has been tested as a psychopath?
Should I knowingly date a person who's been tested as a psychopath?
That's
really
right. Yes, that's the question. And I just thought I'd leave it there for you.
Well, first of all, first thing I want you to do is go watch Silence of the Lambs. and yeah, just identify with the Jodie Foster character in there and say, do you really want to date Hannibal Lecter? Well, of course. I mean, here's the question. Do you want to date a psychopath? No. No. But what's interesting about it is who's been tested as. And I don't know who gave the test or what test that was. There's some scales, like the MMPI is a scale that kind of loads on it. Look, no, that's stupid. Forget the testing part. If somebody is a psychopath, it's really funny. They're going to have weird or very hurtful kinds of things that are going to happen to you. They can be very charming. and very bright and all of that. People would be attracted to them, but they're so about themselves, and it's all about themselves. And they don't love very well. They don't feel a lot of remorse when they hurt you. They are grandiose and narcissistic and lying and manipulate. And why would you want to date somebody like that unless you were filming a documentary? I don't know. So that'd be my answer. Have you got another one that's coming from social?
I do. Let's see here. My spouse doesn't want me talking to my brother and dad about our fights at home. She calls it triangulation, whereas I feel like the arguments need to be shared sometimes for clarity. Am I wrong? If she disagrees, is it okay for this to be just a moot point?
Okay, I want you to read it one more time because I want to make sure I get all the relationships correct here.
Sure. This is from a gentleman on Facebook.
Yeah.
My spouse doesn't want me talking to my brother and dad about our fights at home. She calls it triangulation, whereas I feel like arguments need to be shared sometimes for clarity. Am I wrong? If she disagrees, is it okay for this to be just a moot point?
I got to go with the wife here. Now, obviously, most things have a context, right? So you can't make an absolute on this. Would I ever talk to one of my sisters about, Tori and I disagree about this and the other? Yeah, if we're getting opinions or blah, blah, blah. But look, by and large, here's why this is triangulation, because your wife has relationships with them. Okay. And so person B have a fight or disagreement, and person B goes to person C. Well, they're giving their side of it and their experience of it. And what if they come off kind of victimized and hurt? It's going to kind of turn person C against person A without other mitigating factors, like a lot of integrity by person C and a lot of integrity by person B and a lot of permission by person A and a bunch of other stuff. So why would you want to go poison your relationship in the family with tattling on your wife to your brother and father? Look, if you want help and you need to clarify stuff, which you said you do, that's a very, very good thing to do. But go talk to a neutral party who is there to help serve the marriage, not to just support you. And that's the big factor here, is why are they listening? Are they listening to help you become better with her? Maybe sometimes that would be okay. Or are they listening because you guys are siding up over here? And remember, one of the things that God hates is divisiveness. So this could fall into that category. So that's my spin on that. Talk to people who aren't involved. Now, that doesn't mean sometimes we don't share with our friends, stuff going on with other friends, but it all depends on the heart. To the pure, all things are pure. It's one of my favorite verses. And I can think of family situations where I might talk to somebody else in the family about something's going on with the family, but you're doing it in the service of trying to help, not to hurt. And that gets another part of this too. Is it helpful or hurtful? Okay. So let's go to the phones. We're going to YouTube, talking to Jackie, who's calling us from Michigan. She's working through a postpartum depression, seeing a counselor and in a support group. Whenever she feels like she's making progress, she begins to lose trust in the counselor and herself. And how can I stop allowing doubt to take root? See 3 or 4 factors going on there. So, Jackie, welcome to the Dr. Cloud Show.
Hi.
Hey there.
Hello. Hi.
Hello. I got you. I can hear you.
How's it going? Oh, good. Thanks
Now,
for
you don't
taking my
sound
call.
depressed. Are you not depressed today?
So I was diagnosed with postpartum depression about a year ago when my son was born, and it's I would say I'm like in remission mostly, but yeah, it's still something I'm working through.
Okay.
So I feel like I'll be doing really well with anxiety because I got a lot of support from my amazing counselor and my support groups, Bible studies, and friends. And it's like as soon as I'll relax and engage in the present and just trust people around me, something will kind of stir up my anxiety and I'll question everything that I've held as true.
What would be an example? What would give me a context where you're feeling good, and then what triggers you, and then what are the questions inside begin to sound like?
Okay, so my counselor at our last session said, hey, I don't know if you'd want to try this new technique. I'm probably going to butcher it, but it was like EMDR or something. And she had like a telescope thingy.
Did you say EMDR?
Yes.
Is that what you said? Okay.
And I'm probably
it's not a new technique. She might have meant new to you, but EMDR has been around for 20 years or more, I would think, something like that.
Okay. Well, during the session, she had this like little telescope. It literally looked like a magic wand. I don't know, but she was moving it side to side, and I don't know if it's because she didn't explain much about the process of what she was doing, but I was really surprised that a lot of like childhood anxiety stuff came up.
Yeah, you were surprised. So wait a minute, she's starting to do the EMDR technique, and when she's doing that, memories of childhood trauma are coming up.
No, it was more I felt frustrated in that moment. Like, I don't know what you want from me. I don't know if what are you looking for from me in this? Because I don't understand the exercise, and it reminded me of my time.
What did you mean when you said childhood stuff came up?
So, I don't know if you want a really quick background, but growing up, I had to spend.
Just what you meant by that. What came up. That's all.
Yeah, so I sort of did like a foster care thing, and for part of my childhood, just in the summers when I had to spend time with my dad and his family. I just lived with random people all the time until I could come back to my mom's house for the school year. And
they were separated?
The school year was great. Yeah, my parents were divorced. My dad had authority over the court as a police officer, and unfortunately, he had a big say in everything that happened with me. So he wanted custody just for the summers, but then he didn't want to really see me. So I would spend time with random family.
When you did the EMDR, these childhood memories began to come up?
Yeah, it reminded me of when I would go into different houses and think, what are you expecting of me? What do you want from me? And that was how I felt with my therapist. Like, what do you want from me with this exercise? I don't understand.
Okay. So the dynamic was not so much about the childhood stuff that came up. It was that you felt with the therapist like you felt as a child when you didn't know what was expected of you.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now that's what, and so then that triggers, and then what starts to happen that sends you into a bad place?
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be like randomly where I just will start to doubt myself then. Like, I don't know. My therapist has taught me these amazing techniques. Can I trust them? Can I trust her? And can I trust myself that I'm doing them correctly? Like,
is it limited to this with the therapy? This doubt?
No. I think it'll happen sometimes if other people say something and then I question myself, like, oh, am I not doing this right?
Say something like what? About your depression, about getting well?
Yeah, or even like, oh, this is what I'm doing for this. Then I could think like, oh, well, I don't have that same car. Am I doing it wrong?
Car?
or yeah, just random things in life. I don't know. Like
Okay,
they'll
I
say
got
like,
it.
oh,
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Before you had the postpartum depression, were you subject to a lot of questioning yourself and
yes,
comparing and am I doing the right thing, et cetera, et cetera?
yes.
Okay, all right. And why did
And it
they
was like
decide?
that always in my childhood too. Sorry.
Yeah. And have you ever had treatment for this comparison? Am I doing okay? Kind of questioning myself thing?
I mean, I'm working through it now through therapy, but no, not really.
Okay. And the first therapy you had was related to the postpartum?
Yes. Well, so I did see different childhood psychologists, but they were people my dad would have me see, and I was never
Yeah. No, I
honest,
mean
or
as
I
an
just wouldn't
adult.
talk.
Yeah, as an
Yeah.
adult. This is
Yep.
the first
So really
time.
just,
Okay. All right.
yep.
Good. Well, let me answer the technical question about EMDR to begin with, because you said you had
Okay.
questions about that. And is it valid? And blah, blah, blah. It's not a new technique. EMDR has been around for, and I don't know exactly, I'm going to guess 20 years or so. Um, it's here's what EMDR, you said she pulled out this kind of, what'd you say, a baton or something? Is that
Like a
right?
little magic wand telescope
A
thing.
magic wand. Yeah,
Stethoscope.
that's what it was. Um, the magic wand, oh, how can I make this brief?
Like Harry Potter.
EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing. That's what
Okay.
EMDR means. Have you ever seen anybody who's sleeping and dreaming and their eyes are closed, but you can see their eyes moving back and forth like that under their eyelids? Have you ever seen
Mhm.
that? Okay, that's eye
Yeah.
movement in REM sleep. Okay. And
Okay.
what that means is the brain is processing stuff. It's moving emotional content all throughout a lot of memory networks and regions of the brain and different kinds of systems inside of you. It's a period of sleep in a specific cycle that rejuvenates us. It's a very good thing that happens inside of us to get emotional stuff to kind of flush through the system that God designed into our sleep cycles. Okay.
Mm.
Now, what they discovered, however many years ago, I'm going to guess it's 20. That'd be an interesting thing for somebody to look up. A woman psychologist discovered, and I think I'm not going to get this story right, but she's walking down the street. She has a panic attack or something, and somehow she, this is vaguely right. Somehow her eyes did something, and then it helped, and then she started thinking about this. I'm botching this story, but the point is, what she learned was that if she could get trauma victims to move their eyes in the way that they do when they're in REM sleep, that it basically moved emotional stuff through the system. Okay. It's a way of hitting play in the brain to get certain movies playing. And then the reprocessing, basically what that's about is you have two hemispheres in your brain that are collected or connected by something called the corpus callosum. It's sort of like they're wired up together. And you're trying to get this stuff moving through the systems of bilateral processing. So you look this way, you look that way, it gets both sides of your brains working, and then it gets stuff moving. All right. And it's very effective.
Okay.
They've been shown in trauma. And then they've kind of broadened it to applications and other things. So is she doing something weird? Not necessarily at all. If it's properly applied with the proper kinds of reasons and this and the other. It sounds like, though, to you, and this is what the learning is, it sounds like, though, to you, that at least to your satisfaction, she didn't adequately explain what she was doing. So you didn't know what was expected of you.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Now, what that did sort of almost even validates the EMDR in a way. It brought up a childhood feeling of what's expected of me. I'm in a new place. Somebody wants me to do something. I don't know what to do. And when I do that, I begin to doubt myself. And then I go into anxiety and depression.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And so many adults, I think, growing up who looked like you could trust them, but then you couldn't.
Yeah.
So just sometimes I struggle with all of that. Yeah.
Exactly. So what I would do is if I'm a clinician and I'm listening to this and I'm hearing you and I'm going, wow, this is a real big issue or dynamic we should look at for how you feel and what experiences gave you that feeling of, I don't know what's expected of me. I don't know how to make people happy. How do I feel secure? What if I
Yeah.
do the wrong thing? Can I even trust this
Yeah.
person? So I think
Yes.
you've hit on
Oh my
something.
gosh. That's been my life. Yeah.
And what I would do.
It's so frustrating.
Oh gosh, that is frustrating because you can't operate. As I said
Yeah.
earlier in the beginning of the program, I don't know if you heard it or not, but I talked about intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic is where we're coming from a core inside and interacting with the world, not looking outside. How do I organize the world in order to be safe? And you missed out on some security things. So that's what I would want you
Oh
to
my
go
gosh. Yes.
to your therapist and say, I need to talk about this dynamic. And hopefully you guys will have something good to work on. Okay.
Because like she taught me, like, label yourself something like survival mode Jackie. So that's what I've been labeling myself. And then one day I just questioned it. Like, well, can I trust that that's actually working?
Well, but then that becomes grist for the mill, as they say. You know, whenever something's going on between you and the therapist and you start to question something and doubt something, then I would talk to her about that. And ultimately, she's going to be helpful to you or not, and you can decide that. But you guys can decide that together. But it's really, really helpful, I think, to begin to talk about this dynamic as something that's really key in being a trigger for you. Okay. Got to go talk to some other folks, but I appreciate your call. I think a lot of people have questions about EMDR. I'm going to give you a free webinar. Comes from the Boundaries.me Plus package, and it's called Restoring Our Brokenness. And hope that helps you. I think it'll tap into a lot of issues that you're talking about. And remember about your therapy and all people in therapy that when you have questions about your therapy, ask your therapist about your questions. Say, I feel lost here. I'm not sure this is helping me. Why should I trust this? Those are real valid questions. It's also valid always to go maybe get a second opinion. And you and your therapist sometimes might want to get a consult from another therapist to look at, are we doing the right things? Is this stuck or whatever? You are the consumer and you're the one that has all the rights in terms of whether or not what you're getting is helpful to you. Nothing wrong with questioning a therapist about that at all. Talk about it. And then you might get a great answer, put your mind at ease, and then you and your therapist are off and running to new stuff. Okay, Jess, how about the social world? What kind of questions do we have coming up?
All right, here's one for you. I have a question concerning boundaries within a marriage. How do you handle a husband scripturally who won't leave and cleave from his family of origin to his immediate family? It's affecting our family in a negative way.
How do you handle them scripturally? Well, it sounds like you know the main passage about that. There are other ones as well. What I would suggest, get my book, Changes That Heal. And in the section there on adulthood, there's many, many, many scriptural references about why achieving adulthood from one's family of origin is central to mental health as an adult. And so you can see a lot of scriptures in there about it. But I want to get to and for some of you who don't know what she's talking about there, God set up a program for humans to go off this assembly line. He said, go be fruitful and multiply. And when he told those two to get together, Adam and Eve, to get together and be fruitful and multiply, there's, in the whole story there, and Jesus reaffirmed this. He said, for this reason, so they could come together. It says, for this reason, says a man shall leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife, and the two shall become one. Okay. Now, the leaving and cleaving, if you notice, is said together in a particular order. Basically, if somebody doesn't leave home and become an adult, I don't know if you know this or not. I'm being facetious here, but by and large, we don't let children get married. I'm going to say that again. We don't let children get married. They have to be of age. What's the old phrase? Age of accountability. Well, that's not actual a scriptural thing, but it is an idea that's a whole nother topic. But it seems to be, if you were to say something about that from the scriptures, it's roughly around age 20 that somebody kind of like becomes adult and responsible. If you go to Galatians 4, it's when they leave the authority of parents and become their own guardians and managers. It's only that kind of person that's ready for marriage, because if your parents are governing you, then your parents are governing your marriage, and you have a children marriage, two children getting together because they're under the family of origin still. And so you got to leave and become an adult and then get married, and two adults come together and become one, and they establish a new household. So what I would do is, scripturally, you could address it that way, but really becomes important here practically. And what I would do is, however open he is to talking about this, I would want to go to a good counselor who understands both the biblical and the psychological components of this, that you can't have a marriage if the in-laws are running your house. You can't make it work well. It doesn't even matter if it's good. It reduces people. And so I would want to, you can try the scriptural thing, but really this comes into, you've got to take it into the relationship, how this is affecting you, and leaving you feeling like a third wheel, which is awful, and leaving you, it's feeling like they're not his primary attachment, and how that affects you. And so I would want to get him into counseling, and maybe a counselor can help him to see that. And then you can figure out what the appropriate boundaries are going forward from there. Okay. We got time for one more quick question from the phones. Speaking of such matters, let's go to Maria from YouTube, who's calling us from Dallas. And she has a question about cutting ties with her mom. Maria, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for taking my call, Dr. Cloud.
You're very welcome.
So yes, I need to know if there were any other options to, I guess, honor my mother, but still keep my distance from her. I don't know exactly how to do that. I've been through a lot of abuse throughout my entire childhood. Most recently, I cut ties with my brothers, my two older brothers. One of them sexually abused me growing up, and my mom's always defended him. Now, I still continue to talk to her. I call her, ask her how she's doing, but she seems to bring up my brothers quite a lot and bring up the gatherings that she's had. And it does hurt because I'm not there. I wasn't invited. And I do know that I have a lot of healing to do, and I just don't know if I can do that.
Hold on
while continuing to talk.
Hang on. I just want to clarify something. You weren't invited, but you said you cut ties with them. So why would you be invited if you cut ties with them? You know what I'm saying?
So yes. So in my mind, I feel as though she has always chosen them instead of me. So, why couldn't she ask me to have dinner with her rather than my siblings?
Oh, so it's
So
not
it's
that you
not
wanted to be
necessarily
invited and including on the gathering with your siblings. It's like you want dinner with
correct.
mom.
Correct.
Okay. Well, does she ever invite you to do anything, just the two of you?
No, never. She doesn't. She's never
Okay.
tried to do anything with me. She calls me when she doesn't feel good. Most
Okay.
recently, yeah. So
All right.
I
So
just don't know if.
go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, I think I kind of get the nature of the relationship a little bit. So what is the question?
So in my heart, I feel as though I need to stop talking to her. I just feel guilty. Not only that, she also has my 14-year-old brother, he's close to being 15. She's an alcoholic to begin with. So I communicate with him a lot. I'm pretty much like the person he depends on because he can't depend on my mother. So in my heart, I feel as though I need to cut ties with her, but then my brother's there as well, and I don't know how that would work.
Well, that's hard. I mean, that's going to be hard to do, right? I mean, you can practically without doing anything formal, without a decree or something, you can just call and talk to your brother and not call your mom. I mean, you don't have to, go to court and get a settlement or anything to do that, right?
Do I have a valid? Maybe it's just spiritually. I don't know that it's the right thing to do. How do I honor my mother and still not talk to her? Like, is that even honoring her? I don't know.
Well, do you want to not talk to her ever for about anything, or do you want to just stay away from the triggers? What is it you want with her?
Yes. So I would like to stay away from the triggers, but it seems like even her voice will trigger me. So
Are you in therapy now?
Are you in
therapy now about
yes,
all these triggers?
I am. And I recently had COVID, so I haven't been in, but he did suggest that I be careful with her. That's all he said.
Oh, of course. Of course. Okay.
So he just said, if you,
He just said what?
Oh, he just said, just to continue to talk to her. If I want to talk to her, just to be careful. And we had a crazy conflict happen a few weeks ago where I finally set some boundaries with her. She didn't take it the good way. I mean, it blew up. It was really, really bad. And so that was really hard.
What was real quickly, because we're right up against the clock. What was the boundary you set with her? What was the boundary?
She started living at my home. She's an alcoholic, so I set some boundaries.
She moved in with you?
Yes, it lasted 5 days before I told her, Mom, I need a time frame. I hadn't asked her before, but she took it completely.
Okay, so we're not talking about phone calls. I mean, she moved in with you.
Yeah, a lot of triggers. But we've had the issues for years. For years and years.
I get that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you set a boundary, and what was the boundary?
I told her that we had certain
live
rules.
Somewhere else?
No. Well, no, I told her we needed to know how long she was going to stay. What was her plan? We told her my brother had to go to school because he hadn't been in weeks. I had no idea. He wasn't going to school. She couldn't come home drunk because she would come home at midnight stumbling. We would see it on our cameras. So we set those rules for her, and she immediately said, you're ungrateful. You have this house because of me. Called my brothers. My brothers called me and just told me go to, I don't know if I'm allowed to say it was just HELL, like just horrible. It put me through so much, but thankfully because of therapy, I've been able to
Good. Okay. So you set a boundary and said she can't live there doing that, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's get back to the question. Okay.
Okay.
And the question is, you don't have to talk to your mother, talk to your brother. You know, we talked about that and make sure he's okay. Is he back in school now?
Yes. Hmm.
Okay. All right. So here's there's sort of a continuum here, right? You could pick and choose and sort of like dance around this, and if you want to talk to your mother for whatever reason, which is, I mean, it's great to have a relationship with your mother. I don't know that she's capable of it if she's drunk all the time, but if you talk to her and you talk about A, B, and C, and it's fine. But when she gets to talking about stuff that is hurtful to you, I think it's probably time for a conversation at that point. Say, you know what, Mom, I really want to have a relationship with you, and I want us to have a good relationship. But there's certain things that I don't want to talk about. And I'm not, as you know, I'm estranged from my brothers or A, B, and C, whatever the issues are. And so I don't want to talk about those. If you want to talk about other things, life and how you're doing or how I'm doing or whatever, that's great. But I'm not going to talk about those. And if you do start to talk about those, I'll end the conversation. Okay. Now you could do that. That's one option. Okay. And that puts her in control of it. So you don't have to feel guilty about that because you've told her you want to talk to her, but she's in control of whether or not you're on the phone or not, really, because she gets to like behave or not behave. And if she doesn't, then she's chosen to self-select out of the conversation. Or you can talk with your therapist about this. And there are some times, and I'm going to validate this for you. I don't know if it's true for you or not, but it's in the realm of possibilities. That there are sometimes in people's recovery and getting over, abuse and a bunch of other stuff, depending on how severe it's been, depending on how unfinished it is now, there are times where you say, you know what, I just can't have contact with my family at all until I get to a better place and everything's not triggering deep depressions for me. And that's something you and your therapist can decide together. Now, your therapist apparently has kind of looked at all this and said, well, it's okay, talk to her, just be careful. And that's kind of what I'm agreeing with in terms of if you're going to talk to her, you got to be careful and put some limits around the things that will send you down the tubes. But there's no Bible verse that says thou shalt take abuse from your parents. To honor your mother means to say that relationship is important, right? And I'm going to lift it up. And I would go way further down the road of even trying to work this out with her because she's my mother versus some other alcoholic somewhere, right? So you're honoring her by even trying and caring. But all it says about obeying is it says, children, obey your parents. You're not a child. And so she says, you're ungrateful if you don't let me do this and blah, blah, blah. You can disregard all that and say, well, I disagree. To honor her doesn't mean you have to do what she says. And you can certainly protect yourself. And, look at Jesus's words when they said, your mother and your brother and your sister are out here waiting on you. He said, who's that? Who's my mother and brother and sister? It's not biological, he said. It's those who do the will of God. In other words, those who living out the desire. Will means desire. Those who do what God desires, like we treat each other well and have good relationships, support each other, and share all of that. Just because you don't have to take abuse.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes, it does.
You sure?
Yes. Do you mind if I ask you a super quick question? So
it's got to be super quick because we're really up against the clock. Because I heard a little misgiving, but I don't have time for a lot of background. But I have time for a quick question.
So my brother gifted my children some gifts, and I told her I could not accept those.
So the following day she came by and still gave them the gifts and said it was from her. But my 14-year-old brother told me it wasn't. It's just, she's lying to me. I don't know if that, maybe that goes into a longer question. So it's disregarded.
Yeah,
If
I thought you meant your brothers you're estranged from.
yeah, those.
Oh, at the end, it
So
sounded like it was from your 14-year-old brother.
no, he just told me, hey, just FYI, Mom didn't actually buy those gifts. It actually came from the two older ones.
But she told your kids it was from her?
Yes. So she just gave it to them, and she told me, oh, no, these are not the ones that they gave them, the ones that you
Right,
didn't
but
want to accept. These are the
but
ones
what
that
I'm
I bought.
interested in is, what does a kid know? What do your kids
Okay.
know? Who'd they get the gift from
Okay.
in their heads?
Okay.
In their heads, who'd the gift come from?
Okay. That helps.
No, I'm asking. I
Thank
don't
you.
know the answer.
Oh, I mean, from my mom. That's what they think. So,
Oh,
I mean, it's just because it's
so
in my head. Yeah.
their grandmother gave them a gift. Great. Hopefully, they'll have a
Okay.
better relationship with her than she did with you. I hope.
I hope.
Yeah, I hope she gets sober. Okay, call me back again. We have
Thank
more
you so
time to
much.
talk about this. We're up
Thank you
against
so
the
much.
clock, and you're very welcome. I'm gonna gift you two things. One is, well, you know what? I'm gonna give you a full subscription to Boundaries.me Plus, because all of the workshops are in there, and there's a few of them that I think will really be helpful to you. One of them is restoring our brokenness, but the other one is the art of confrontation, and that's going to give you some help in having these difficult conversations with your mother. Okay, guys, it has been great to be with you. Let me remind all of you at the end of the program here of what I just was talking about with Maria, and that is Boundaries.me has a lot of stuff on there that you can go dig deep into to get kind of almost a life university of all these different topics. Go to Boundaries.me. A Boundaries.me Plus subscription gets you access to the whole thing, all of the webinars, all of the workshops, all of the 90-something courses on various topics, and a daily coaching video that hits your inbox that I do every day for you. All righty. And in addition, remember, sign up for, excuse me, I need a sip of water here. Scratchy throat. We have a 2-hour webinar coming up February 21st, live webinar, you and me, 2 hours on trust. How do you know if you can trust somebody? What if you feel like, gosh, they're so charming and loving and wonderful and all this looks good, but something doesn't feel quite right? How do you know when to question them on it? How do you know even if you should think about trusting this person? If you have trusted somebody and that trust has been broken, how do you overcome a betrayal of trust? And is it possible? And when should you and when should you not trust them again? Can people overcome betrayals of trust? And how does it work when they do? How do you know how to diagnose a trustworthy person? And how in our relationships can we do things that build trust? All of that we're going to be looking at in a variety of different kinds of relationships, personal and marriage and family and business. February 21st, 2 hours live right here, you and me. And you sign up, and there's still early bird pricing. You'll avoid a big price hike if you sign up now by going to boundaries.me/trust. Okay. Great to be with you. You guys are the rockin'est best audience. You have the best questions. I listen to every program on the entire internet. I stayed up all night. I listened to every program that's on the entire internet, right? I listened to all the radio shows in the entire planet. I went to Mars. I listened to all of theirs. And none of the audiences are as cool as you guys, because you are exercising this path of growth. It's fun to be in it with you. Really, really appreciate your feedback and all the stuff that y'all post and the questions where you help us to make it better. Share the program with your friends, and we'll be here tomorrow, and I will see you then. Okay.